Greetings, fellow citizens, and welcome to Dumpster Times number 14. Yes, this is the 14th week in a row that I have managed to hit the deadline of Monday for the Dumpster Times. This one is a struggle, however, because it's a difficult subject, one that I thought about doing earlier last week, and then I said, oh, I don't want to do it because it's so much. And then I put it aside, and then on Friday, big conflict arose in Gaza Strip and Israel. And so now there are two wars going on, two major wars. There are other wars. There's a lot of war. I ain't gonna study war no more. I'm gonna lay down my nuclear bomb down by the riverside, down by the riverside. Down by the riverside, I'm gonna lay down my submachine gun. Down by the riverside, I'm gonna study war no more. Well, unfortunately, we have to study war because it's happening again. So let's ask a few questions about this all-important topic, but I don't know. I don't feel quite safe talking about it here. Come with me to my very secure, special, safe spot. Here we are in my little bomb shelter hovel, and hopefully we'll be safe here and we can talk. You know, when I think about war, I have a whole lifetime full of war experiences, not actual experiences, like being in the war, but being a person who was affected by a major war, the Vietnam War, in my youth. And then after that, there were many other wars. In particular, George W. Bush and his father, George H.W. Bush, both had wars that upset me greatly and which I did a lot of activism against. And when we talk about war, I have questions. You can type your questions into a little box and come up with a bunch of answers. So when talking about war, the first question that came to my mind is, has there ever been a time or several periods of time when the world has not been at war? So this is according to the New York Times, July 6, 2003. Of the past 3,400 years, humans have been entirely at peace for 268 of them, or just 8% of recorded history. Can there ever be world peace? This is March 2022. Historians might quibble over the exact details, but by most accounts, there are no periods in history that have been free from war. Much of recorded history has also been filled with imperial or colonial occupations, where a powerful nation uses force to rule over other nations. If the only reliable way to avoid war is to have global empires ruling by force, then the prospects for any meaningful world peace seem a bit grim. I agree. All right, this is a good one. Is war inevitable? Debate rages among anthropologists. Got some burials here. Researchers say that archaeological evidence left behind by warfare generally includes specialized weapons, skeletal trauma in many individuals, and group burials with signs of violent deaths. War is not an inevitable feature of society, according to two scientists who analyzed acts of aggression in 21 hunter-gatherer societies. Among people who live today, most like our ancestors did long ago, most acts of murder occur as a result of individual conflicts rather than as part of major battle-style events, the researchers report in the journal Science. That would suggest that war is an artifice of society and not an intrinsic feature of human nature. And of course, there's a lot of criticism of this point of view, and other people who insist that it is indeed an inherent trait that we are all warriors, that we must put on our male authority masks. This is my male authority. Unfortunately, this is so old and well worn that the elastic is broken and so is the mask. But this guy represents white male authority, capitalism, authoritarianism, fascism, all those things. So that leads to the question, well, what is keeping us from living the way the hunter-gatherers did, relatively peaceful, except for fights over boyfriends and girlfriends? Well, it seems that there are some things that can cause problems. Things like hierarchy and status, which means some people are stepping over other people to get power and money. And then there's capitalism, which is a form of economic cruelty that is just rife with war. I mean, look at the military-industrial complex. That is capitalism. Those people who build the factories to make the weapons and hire the people to make the weapons and then sell the weapons all around the world and then encourage them to use the weapons so that they can sell them more weapons. Well, the sad thing is, in this country and many other places around the globe, your friends and neighbors, maybe someone in your family is working for one of those corporations that makes evil things. And maybe you don't even know that that little doohickey that your company makes and ships off to another company ends up in a clusterfuck bomb going off over Russia or Ukraine. It's upsetting, and I don't know how to stop it. But I think we need to be aware that it's our consent to the people who are ruling us that allows them to do this. We keep voting in people who keep voting massive amounts of money into the military. No matter how we feel about it, they do that. Why do you think that is? It's because they're getting money from those corporations to support their campaigns. And we, the people, have no say in it whatsoever. Other things that cause this warring land, people get attached to their homes. And if somebody comes rolling in and takes over your home, you probably are going to fight back. And when it's a whole tribe of people taking over your tribe, you're probably going to fight back or run for cover. I don't know. It's never happened to me. My mother experienced it. She was in London during World War II and was sent to Wales because of the bombings that were happening in London. She was a child then. But me, no, I've just protested them a lot. And now there are more wars to protest. Other things that we are fighting for these days are oil. And now we have this massive conflict that could just be the light that blows everything up in the Middle East, where the oil is, where a lot of the oil is. And then the final thing happening over there is religion. You've got all of these people over there with differing religions, but that particular little area is what they all want to name Holy Land for their religion. Now that is a recipe for disaster, don't you think so? What use is a Holy Land if it leads to death and destruction century after century, huh? So that leads to the question, of course, well, what is it good for? The answer is absolutely nothing. Russia versus Ukraine. It's very trendy to get into this debate online amongst the left. Are you supporting Ukraine? Are you supporting Russia? Oh, Putin's horrible. Oh, Ukrainians, they have Nazis. What is a person to do? Maybe call for peace? Maybe not send more military weapons? Maybe do some radical peace negotiating, which nobody seems to like to do anymore. Come on, United Nations. Come on, everybody. Stop it. Tell them to stop it. It's like they start putting restrictions on them and then they only go so far. Why? Because they want the war to keep going, I guess. So Russia versus Ukraine, I don't have an answer. Palestine versus Israel, I have even less of an answer. I mean, what's been going on over there is utterly horrific. Bad behavior on all sides. Meanwhile, innocent children and families are torn apart because these two peoples who are more genetically related than others in that area can't get along, hate each other, do things that will last in the memories generation after generation, keeping it going forever and ever. Stop it. Just stop it. That's the voice I use when my dog is barking like a maniac. Stop it. Well, they're barking like maniacs and they're hurting people. And speaking of dogs, I think I can only end with one very important little visual poem for you all. The gingham dog and the calico cat side by side on the table sat. 'Twas 12:30, and what do you think? Not one nor t'other had slept a wink. The old Dutch clock and the Chinese plate appeared to know as sure as fate there was going to be a terrible spat. I wasn't there, I simply state what was told to me by the Chinese plate. The gingham dog went bow wow wow, and the calico cat replied meow. The air was littered an hour or so with bits of gingham and calico, while the old Dutch clock in the chimney place up with its hands before its face, for it always dreaded a family row. Now mind, I'm only telling you what the old Dutch clock declares is true. The Chinese plate looked very blue and wailed, "Oh dear, what shall we do?" But the gingham dog and the calico cat wallowed this way and tumbled that, employing every tooth and claw in the awfulest way you ever saw. And oh, how the gingham and calico flew! Don't fancy I exaggerate. I got my news from the Chinese plate. Next morning, where the two had sat, they found no trace of dog or cat, and some folks think unto this day that burglars stole that pair away. But the truth about the cat and pup is this: they ate each other up. Now, what do you really think of that? The old Dutch clock, it told me so, and that is how I came to know. The Duel by Eugene Field, 1850, 1895. As climate change puts us all on the heels, war is going to be a sidekick as masses move from one place to another because there's no water, or the heat is too much, or they don't have the ability to grow their food anymore, or they need energy and there's none. All of these things are going to lead to more wars because we haven't been working toward peace. We haven't been trying to solve the problem of peace. Instead of solving that problem, we create armies. We have military budgets. We need budgets for peace. We need to mobilize against climate change. We need to put our greatest minds on the problem. How do we live in harmony with the land and with the planet and with each other? Because that is the way we're going to solve the climate problems. Otherwise, war. It's not good for anything, friends. And I hope this is the last time I have to address it. I know it won't be, but I can just refer people to this video because this is how I feel about war. See you next week, folks. Bye.